Imagine your life is set. Steady job, home, wife, a predictable routine. You believe you're in control until the first crack appears. At first, it's just small things. Late nights, hushed calls, subtle changes. You push the doubts aside, convincing yourself it's nothing. But one night you follow her, and what you find shatters everything. The neon lights flicker, the air is thick with smoke and betrayal. Then, she sees you. Her lips curl into a smirk as she utters the words that seal your fate. "That's my husband. Someone get rid of him. Pain, ruin, a chase for survival. And one question, how far will you go for revenge?" Hello, my friend. I'm so glad you stopped by my channel. If it's your first time here, don't forget to subscribe and like this video, as every like truly inspires me. Please tell me which city and country you watch this video from. Now, let's get started. For years, my life unfolded in a familiar rhythm, a steady job, a structured routine, and a marriage I assumed was built on trust and understanding. But over time, the stability began to wane. Conversations that once flowed effortlessly became strained, and warmth was replaced with cold indifference. The woman I had once considered my closest ally now seemed distant, almost adversarial. I tried to convince myself it was just a passing rough patch, the kind every couple faces. Still, something about her subtle shifts in behavior gnawed at me. The secrecy, the unexplained absences, the way her habits had changed. It all hinted at something deeper. The night I decided to trail her after work shattered every illusion I had desperately clung to. The evening air hung heavy as I followed her sleek car, the very one I had purchased, while she funneled her modest paycheck from the supermarket into an ever-growing collection of clothes and cosmetics. She made an abrupt stop at a convenience store, vanishing inside only to reappear moments later with a small overnight bag. But it wasn't just the bag that caught my attention. It was her transformation. A miniskirt clung tightly to her hips, and a sheer blouse, absent of any undergarment, left little to the imagination. It wasn't just revealing, it was deliberate. I remained in pursuit as she drove beyond the city limits, eventually pulling into the parking lot of a seedy biker bar, the kind with a reputation for danger. The way she sauntered toward the entrance, exchanging smirks and knowing glances with the men outside, made it clear. She wasn't a stranger here. I slipped inside unnoticed, taking a seat at the bar just as she draped herself across the lap of a hulking man with a presence that dominated the room. They were lost in each other until her gaze flicked toward me. For a brief moment I thought she might ignore me, pretend I wasn't there. But then she spoke, her voice cutting through the din like a blade. "That's my husband. Someone get rid of him before he makes a scene." I turned on my heel, intending to leave, but the bikers moved faster. A rough hand seized my arm, and instinct kicked in. I shoved him aside, narrowly dodging a fist from another. I had nearly reached the door when a towering brute stepped into my path. His sheer size was daunting, but I braced myself and lunged forward. It was pointless. He caught me with ease, throwing me down the stairs as if I weighed nothing. Pain exploded through my body as I hit the ground. Before I could react, he was on me, fists hammering into my ribs, my face, my gut, each blow more brutal than the last. His taunts, dripping with mockery, stung almost as much as his fists. And above it all, I could hear my wife laughing. When I regained consciousness, pain radiated from every inch of my body. My ribs felt fractured, and one of my eyes was sealed shut with dried blood. I remained motionless in the shadows, listening to the fading echoes of their laughter, hoping no one noticed I was awake. Every movement sent fresh agony rippling through me, but I had no choice. Inch by inch, I dragged myself toward my truck, each step a battle against pain. I reached it, unlocked the door, and winced as the dome light flared, illuminating the night. Fear clawed at my chest, but I forced myself inside, biting down against the sharp protest of my broken ribs. The engine roared to life, cutting through the silence. My eyes locked onto her car, parked neatly among the rows of motorcycles. A reckless thought took hold, curling my fingers around the steering wheel. Did I have it in me? Adrenaline drowned out hesitation. I threw the truck into gear and slammed on the accelerator. The impact sent her car skidding sideways into the bikes, the crunch of metal shattering the night. Furious shouts erupted from inside the bar. Without thinking, I reversed, then veered sharply to finish what I started, plowing through the remaining motorcycles, reducing them to twisted wreckage that blocked the entrance. As I sped away, dust swirled in my rearview mirror. My body was screaming in agony, but survival took precedence. I needed medical attention, but the nearest hospital was out of the question. That would be the first place they'd check. Instead, I set my course for an Impact Medical 50 miles away. Then, in the mirror, I saw them. Headlights appeared. No sirens, just the steady, menacing growl of engines. The bikers were coming. The sound of chains clanging against my truck sent a jolt of panic through me. I swerved hard, forcing two riders off the road, their bikes skidding into a ditch. Another closed in on my right. A sudden jerk of the wheel sent him tumbling across the asphalt. A brief flicker of satisfaction flared inside me, but it was short-lived. More were still in pursuit. Desperation took hold. I slammed the brakes, bracing for impact. The sickening thud confirmed I'd made contact. Then, silence. As I hit the gas again, their headlights disappeared from view. Was it over? Reaching Centerville, I recalled an old acquaintance with an abandoned ranch just outside town. I veered onto the gravel road, pulling my truck behind a barn where it would stay hidden. Leaving my wallet and ID in the cab, I placed the keys atop the rear wheel and forced myself to move. Every step was a fresh wave of torture, but I needed to put distance between myself and the vehicle. A mile down the road, my body finally gave out. With the last of my strength, I whispered into my phone, weaving a desperate tale of abduction and escape. Eventually, someone found me. I heard voices questioning me as I struggled to maintain my fabricated story. Then came the paramedics, the sting of IVs, the blur of movement and sterile light. The painkillers dulled the edges of my suffering as the Impact Medical loomed ahead, marking the uncertain beginning of whatever came next. At the hospital, I stuck to my story, despite the police pressing me for details. They mentioned a series of strange motorcycle accidents in the area, clearly fishing for a connection, but I feigned ignorance, portraying myself as nothing more than an unfortunate victim. The nurse informed me that my injuries were serious enough to require an overnight stay. I nodded in acknowledgement, hoping the chaos I'd left in my wake would grant me enough time to figure out my next move. As soon as I pieced together what Nora had been up to, I didn't hesitate. The moment I was able to, I called my brother, Tyrone. He was my go-to in times of crisis, calm, dependable, and unwaveringly loyal. I gave him the rundown and asked him to find a crew that could discreetly move my belongings. He didn't ask for specifics, just assured me that he'd handle it. True to his word, within a few hours, Tyrone had a team clearing my things out of the house. My next call was to Matthew, an old friend in real estate. "Matthew, I need to sell my house immediately," I said, cutting straight to the chase. As expected, he remained unshaken even as I explained the mess involving Nora and her new boyfriend. Without hesitation, he promised to handle everything, including any interference from Nora. "She's just a tenant now," I reminded him. "She has no legal claim over the house unless a judge says otherwise." By evening, Tyrone checked in with an update. My essentials were safely stored, and to make things more inconvenient for Nora, the movers had cleared out extra items. "The house is empty," he confirmed. "We might need to change the locks, though." Predictably, Nora wasn't going to take this lying down. When Matthew arrived to assess the property and plant a "for sale" sign in the yard, she lost it. "What's going on?" she demanded. Matthew remained composed, calmly explaining that he was managing the rental now and presenting her with a lease agreement. She refused to sign it, which only meant the clock had started ticking on her eviction. Meanwhile, I was busy rebuilding. I secured a small apartment, furnished it only with essentials, and ensured Nora no longer had access to my finances. She still had her job, but she wouldn't be living off me anymore. When I finally reached out to Nora, it wasn't out of remorse, it was strategic. Her tone was a mixture of anger and desperation. "Why are you doing this?" she pleaded. "You're my husband. You're supposed to take care of me." I didn't sugarcoat my response. "And you were supposed to be faithful," I shot back. "Instead, you stood by while your boyfriend attacked me. Did you really think I'd come back after that?" She scrambled for excuses, but I wasn't interested. "The house is being sold. Either pay rent or move out." "I don't care which," I said before hanging up. The days that followed were quiet. I threw myself into work, kept my head down, and waited for whatever came next. Nora's messages kept coming, each one confirming what I already knew. She wasn't remorseful about her actions, just upset about the consequences. I had accepted that eventually her new friends would come looking for me. But I wasn't afraid. I had prepared myself both mentally and physically to stand my ground. Nora had made her decisions, and I had made mine. Now, it was just a matter of endurance. The house had sustained some damage, which meant Nora would need renter's insurance. One of the officers smirked as he commented, "Couldn't have happened to a better person." I had spoken with her the day before. She still refused to sign the lease. "I'll drop by with an officer to remind her she's responsible for maintaining the property once repairs are done," he added. I doubted the officer had anything to do with her troubles. "Not my doing," he confirmed. "A couple of bikers, probably friends of her new guy, have been keeping an eye on me. I let one of them pass by Nora's place yesterday. It seemed like the damage had been a case of mistaken identity. The police were investigating and had some pointed questions for her boyfriend, Ryan." The officer chuckled again, just as my phone rang. An unknown number. I glanced at the screen. "Nora," I answered, already bracing for whatever nonsense she had in store. "What do you want?" She came in swinging. "Why are you trying to get the cops involved?" "Why would I vandalize a house I'm trying to sell?" I countered. "Do you even listen to yourself?" Her aggression caught me off guard, but I quickly adjusted. "I expected better, Nora. Now you're accusing me of trashing my own property?" There was silence on the other end, then the faint sound of her swallowing hard. "Buck, I'm sorry. I thought maybe you did it out of anger." But after the officers left, I asked Ryan. He admitted some of his guys might have been looking for payback, since you wrecked a few of their bikes and put some of them in the hospital. I exhaled sharply, exasperated. "Are you serious? I was the one unconscious in a hospital bed. I was the one who got jumped." Her voice wavered. "Ryan and his guys think you were the one who ran them off the road. They just wanted to make sure you didn't go to the cops. You didn't have to hurt anyone." I scoffed. "Listen to yourself. I was the one who got ambushed. I was the one who got knocked out. When I came to, your boyfriend's lackeys were already circling, ready to finish the job. You stood off to the side, egging them on, and now, after his crew wrecked your place, you have the nerve to pin this on me? Keep popping those pills. You'll be selling yourself to the highest bidder soon enough." She erupted in fury, her voice sharp with accusation, trying to shift the blame onto me. "Enough. Listen." I cut her off before she could spiral further. "Matthew's coming over today to assess the damage for the insurance claim. The policy only covers the house as a rental, not as a personal residence. If you want coverage, you'll need renter's insurance. This isn't just some rental. This is our home." Her voice wavered, like she couldn't quite grasp what was happening. I let out a slow breath. "Which part of betraying me and throwing away our marriage don't you get?" My tone was steady, void of emotion. "This is the life you chose. I was willing to stand by you, to support you. But you had an affair. You stood there and watched him beat me, and you did nothing. You wanted this. Every consequence, every bit of suffering. This is on you." I ended the call before she could say another word. I tried to push the conversation from my mind and focus on the day ahead, but the tension settled deep in my bones, and my face still stung from wounds that had yet to fully heal. Later, after work, I noticed a biker trailing me. He wasn't even trying to be subtle, hanging back just a few cars away. I tested him with sharp turns through Centerville, but he stayed locked on. That's when I decided to act. I slammed my brakes and swung my truck sideways, blocking the road. He had nowhere to run. Stepping out, I pulled my gun just enough to make my point clear. "Hey, man," he started, trying to sound casual. "I don't know what your deal is. I'm just heading home." "Save it," I interrupted. "You've been on my tail since I left work. You're 40 miles from where you belong. No more warnings. You and your crew made a serious mistake backing Kodiak in that ambush. Some of your guys paid the price. Some are still recovering. And last night, you thought you were hitting my place, but you trashed his girlfriend's house instead." I stepped in closer, watching understanding creep into his expression. "And now, here you are, alone, practically daring me to end you. How stupid can you be? One pull of this trigger, and you'll be lying in the street, bleeding out, fully aware you're dying. No one will come to save you." His confidence wavered, but he stayed silent. I chambered around, making sure he heard it. "I warned you. If I have to defend myself, I will. And honestly, I doubt anyone would miss you. Hell, I might even get a commendation for it." I scanned the street, taking another step forward. "See anyone coming?" "The neighbors heard your bike, sure, but they're not going to step in. No sirens, no cops. Either they don't know, or they don't care." His eyes flicked around, nerves creeping in. I rotated the revolver's cylinder twice, just enough to make him flinch, then raised my gun and fired, shattering his headlight. "Turn that piece of junk around and get lost. It's getting dark, and without a headlight, you're a target. If I decide to follow you, well, let's just say I doubt you'd make it through the night." He nodded frantically, spun his bike, and peeled away down the road. I waited until his taillight disappeared before heading toward downtown, staying alert for any of his crew. When I reached my apartment, I parked behind the building, swapped the spent round for a fresh one, and stepped inside. No more playing nice. The night was quiet, but I wasn't naive enough to think it would stay that way. This story has come to an end. Betrayal by those closest to us cuts deeper than any blow, but revenge is not a cure. It's just another step into the abyss. Sometimes, the hardest thing isn't to strike back, but to walk away with your dignity intact. True strength lies not in destruction, but in the ability to start over without looking back. Fate has a way of setting things right. Everyone answers for their actions. The key is to never let someone else's betrayal break your soul. What's your opinion? Share it in the comments, my friend. And if you like this story, check out other exciting videos on my channel. I'll say goodbye until the next video. See you.